Bungie just dropped another Twab today. And I'm going to do something that other people don't do, and that is actually read through it really quickly and give you the stuff that matters. And I'm going to give you my honest thoughts and reactions as I go and kind of give some more thoughts toward the end. We'll get right into it, though. So they outline what they're going to talk about, and immediately I have a problem with this because they're going to talk about maps, rewards, game modes, sandbox issues, and matchmaking. And this is the big Twab for Crucible, and this is what they're deciding to talk about. One of which, Crucible Maps, we already know that there's 3 maps being added, so you don't need to talk about them that much. Rewards, that's where they actually talk about some good stuff. Game modes, I'm tired of game modes getting added into the game. Most of the ones you add are terrible, let's face it. Tribute, Eruption, a few others. They just give people wall hacks when you're doing good against you. And I hate it. They're not good game modes, and stop adding them. Sandbox issues, they just reiterate last week's Twab, so you can skip over that whole section. And then matchmaking, they yap about it for a really long time, and they don't provide data that I really like. And we'll get into it. Let's go. Crucible Maps, again, they're adding in 3 new maps. We already knew that. They're going to be free, but we've already paid for them because, you know, we bought Beyond Light, so we bought Eventide Labs already. We bought Lightfall, we already own the Neomuna map. And we bought Witch Queen, we already own that map. We paid for these, but we're getting them now. They're just delayed. They had delayed shipping. As for the other changes, they just yapped. They yapped and yapped and yapped about improving spawn quality. We're doing all this. Irrelevant crap. It doesn't do anything. What you actually need to do is rework maps. Pick the ones that are terrible, like Disjunction, and actually change them. Because just making the spawns smaller and shrinking the map size, or at least the feel of the map, doesn't improve the fact that the map itself is terrible. All right, the entire center strip of a Disjunction is one of the worst center strips of any map in any game ever. Just delete that piece of trash from the game. Every time I queue into that map, it's a nightmare because everyone leaves immediately and you're just left there thinking, do I stay or do I go? And the answer is you leave. You get the hell out of there. That map sucks. Delete it. As for the other 3, I'm happy that they're getting their spawns kind of brought in a little bit so they play a little faster. It's fine. But that would have been solved by just not having massive spawns in the first place because you guys aren't good at designing maps. And stop trying to make maps specifically for Rift. No one even likes it. You failed to re-implement it into this game. So there's a harsh critique of that crap. Now let's get into the rewards. So right off the bat, they slip in some propaganda. They say they've increased the end of match rewards already for Crucible. No, you didn't. Not at all. I don't know about Glimmer and Enhancement Cores, but increasing the engrams and then also tripling the cost of focusing doesn't result in an overall increase. It actually results in an overall decrease. You guys are literally lying here, and you did this to all 3 ritual playlists, Gambit and Strikes included. They're all getting less loot now. It's harder to focus weapons, so blatant lie right there. For comp, they added weapon focusing and a second tier with Ascendant Alloys. They did do that. That's good. And then they're adding Artifice armor. This is the big one. Something I've been calling for a while. You know, some real tangible endgame loot into comp that actually encourages people to play it. But it was a little vague how they talked about it here. Adding a 3rd tier to the competitive weekly challenge with the reward of Artifice armor. A 3rd tier. The first 2 tiers require 6 matches. This tier, again, will require match victories instead of completions, so bear with me here, but this could potentially mean that you have to play 6 matches and then win 3 matches, totaling out to, at a bare minimum, 9 matches to start getting Artifice armor to drop on wins as a chance with class items included. Class items are irrelevant once you get one of them. You know, there should be bad luck protection preventing you from getting them ever again. You only need 1 copy of a class item, that's Artifice, and you're done with class items forever. So that is rancid, if I'm reading it correctly and if this is actually how it gets implemented. So I'm not happy about that. I think that's really scummy. The one thing I do like is that drop rates increase alongside your rank. That's cool. So an Ascendant player hopefully has very high drop rates of Artifice armor on wins. Outside of that, though, I think they implement it in a really scummy way if it ships how I just described. So kind of an L, but a W overall. Trials are increasing the loot in different ways, one of which is making the weapon that drops at the end of random trials games when you win be the Adept weapon for that week, but not Adept, the non-Adept version. So currently, if you're just playing on a card, you get random weapons to drop. Now it's just going to be the one that's the Adept weapon that week. If it's Adept Messenger, Messengers are going to be the weapon that drops randomly on wins. Passage of Ferocity is going to have like a checkpoint in it now. If you get to 3 wins, losing and resetting your card brings you down to 3 wins instead of 0. So it's actually going to really help people get flawless. Again, just helping out the casuals, and I don't even care at this point. We have comp. Trials can go to easy mode for all I care. It already is. Then there's the Passage of Persistence. This is a big deal. This is the one that's going to really help people get their hands on Adept weapons. It's still going to be a slow process for a lot of teams, but essentially, as long as you can win like 2 games at a time, occasionally you're eventually going to get to 7 wins and be able to buy 1 Adept weapon. That's the gist of it. And then, yeah, they are also adding in more loot for playing in a 3-stack to try and encourage people to do trios, because trios is suffering. I haven't played trios in a long time once they added in duos, because I just play with my brother. So that won't change anything for me, because I don't care about non-adept rewards in the slightest, or engrams. I have 99 of them. There's nothing to focus for trials because the armor is terrible. Once you actually get it and transmog it, it just doesn't matter. So Artifice is the key. I would have liked to see Artifice get added into both playlists, honestly, but it's fine. We'll take it in one of them, honestly. Keep saying honestly. Now they're talking about game modes. This is where I really start to just like doze off. I'm basically half asleep at this point, snoring. They created Sparrow control already. Why don't you also delete it? Terrible, terrible game mode idea. Like, why is there Sparrows in control? No. It like immediately sets you to the longer range maps too. It's like, get that out of here right now. That sucks. 3v3 clash is good though. I'm glad they added that in. Hopefully that starts the game. But elsewhere, it seems like it is going to, because they're putting in the Crucible rotator. So heavy ammo will no longer be shared there. I guess heavy ammo was being shared. It was like a crate for the team. That's terrible. I didn't know that's how that worked. I have a better solution though. Across the board, get heavy ammo out of the Crucible. It's terrible. No one likes it. But at a bare minimum, like heavy ammo should seriously drop once a game in every game mode, no matter what. It already basically does in trials, and that's where you really love the heavy ammo because it's barely there. But in like Rumble and Control, dying to grenade launchers over and over again. Is that good? Do you guys want that? What an easy change that would be to just reduce it, idiots. Then they're adding collision. This is a King of the Hill mode, and I was reading this, and at first I was like, all right, cool. And then I started reading further, and I was like, oh, not cool. They're adding in a special ammo crate system. You are literally about to change special ammo completely from the bricks to a meter. Then you're going to add in another game mode with a different source of special ammo? No, stop doing this. This is too much. You don't need to do this. Like, this is a waste of your time. Don't even waste your brain power trying to create special ammo crate spawns for maps. Like, I don't like that. I don't know if it's going to play good or not. We'll see. Why even bother with that? Let us work around with this meter and figure that out first before you add in special ammo crates. Absolutely ridiculous. They're updating Iron Banner Tribute. They would have saved time if they just deleted it. Terrible game mode. Supremacy is already bad, but to make it then objective based with terrible. I don't like it. But those changes were good. They are removing the wall hacks. Fine. Checkmate will be back in Crucible Labs, so it's coming back. The original version of it, essentially. So people who like that can have it back. Hardware is being added in. This is a no abilities game mode. It's not going to be fun. What they should have done is a no class abilities game mode. That would have been cool. Make it like old OG D1. No rifts, no barricades. It would have been nice if they could have found a way to keep dodging in there. At least for like, Void Hunters. But yeah, I don't necessarily love the sound of this. I think people are going to be on Solar Warlock for the AE or like Stasis Hunter for Shadow Dive. Those are the immediate things I think of, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cheesy weapons being used there. It's not going to be that good. Now they talk about sandbox issues. This is where they just reiterate the previous Twab so that they could flex that this Twab is bigger than the previous Twab. It's all just a rehash of what we already knew. So if you didn't read that one, go read that or watch my previous video on it. For matchmaking details, this is the bulk of the Twab. And this is where I really just started to get less and less happy with what they were saying. First of all, they address some questions that people have and they clarify some things. So their matchmaking systems do not intend to force you to a 1.0 kill death or a 50% win ratio. I agree with the 1.0 kill death. The 50% win ratio thing though, if your whole aim is to create much more balanced lobbies, you're also achieving a much more balanced win ratio for everyone. So you are kind of doing that with the matchmaking system, even if it's indirectly. So you're kind of lying in that regard. I used to win a lot more games more often because I could totally sway the game in my favor back in the past, and you can't really do that as much anymore. So you're lying about the win ratio thing, but otherwise fair enough for the kill death. I don't believe that either. I mean, I don't believe that they are forcing us to do that to a 1.0. I don't know why people say that. Yeah, so they're just explaining the matchmaking here. They have a skill delta for every player. You have like a number assigned to you. and they go from -1,000 to 1,000, and their aim is to keep the skill deltas within 1,000 of each other in control matches and 6v6, and then within 500 of each other for ranked, for comp. And they outline which systems perform that the best and which systems don't. And here we go. So ranked, 60%, 67% of matches are within 300, 26% within 300 to 500. So ranked is succeeding in keeping the skill deltas where they want them. The issue I have with this data is it's broad. It's the whole player base. I want to know what the matchmaking numbers are for people in my skill delta. Let's put it at like 750 to 1,000. So I think that's around where I'd land, although I don't know how many cheaters are occupying that space. Maybe I'm a little lower. But to do this data for everybody doesn't reflect the experience for people at the higher end, because I know for a fact this is not the matchmaking experience I'm getting. Maybe in comp it is, but for like, we're going to get to the other parts here. For open skill matchmaking, 2% of the matches have that skill delta of within 500. So that's basically implying that none of the matches are able to be balanced super strictly. And in fact, almost half of the matches are like a disaster, essentially, according to them, because 46% of them have over 1,000 skill delta difference, which is a lot. That's like over half the like skill range of the entire game difference. So that's really not a good thing. But I don't know what to do with these numbers, because I want to know what it looks like depending on where you are in the brackets. Although I guess in this case it really comes down to connection quality, because it seems like everyone's just matching everyone right away, and then it just tries to grab some good connections. And yeah, they answer questions saying how like, oh, player bases dropped when we had supremacy with having connection based matchmaking, and I had a lot of fun that week. I don't remember when in the season that was, if that was toward the end, but Guardian Games is a very boring event, so I'm not surprised that player retention dropped over the course of the 2 weeks. And Supremacy is a terrible game mode too. I think at the time, once you picked up like 10 crests, you had wall hacks, or maybe even 5. People could like see you through walls. Although, also though, you got like a massive amount of super energy when you started picking up crests, so that game mode was just insane. The steamrolling was out of control. So to then equate that to why connection-based matchmaking isn't effective is kind of a scam. Like you need to do better tests. I want to see the numbers from back in the day when it was like Forsaken and stuff, because that's when the population of the game was really solid, I thought. And we had connection-based matchmaking then. Let me fix my mic. Then they talk about loose skill-based matchmaking. So 51% of the matches in that system were terrible. Anything where it's skill deltas of less than 500 for a control game is terrible for every player in the game. I don't think there's enough variety there. You're not going to have fun playing people exactly like you. That's just the recipe for a boring match. So this system, the fact that it lasted as long as it did is shocking, because that is awful. I didn't realize it was that bad, that half the matches were terrible and less than half were actually decent. So a nightmarish system. But outlier protection seems to be the best middle ground they can find. But again, I need to know what these numbers are for people of a higher skill bracket. If my outlier protection means I can't match people that are at like a 0 skill delta or lower, how many players do I really have access to before like the connections start to get really stinky? Like that's what I want to know, because my queue times are awful. This doesn't help me specifically. I'm not sure what this data really means for my skill bracket. It's just like general data. But I guess they're really concerned with the general player base, so they don't care about us. They don't care about me. Then they talk about fire team based matchmaking, and they essentially say that they have no solution for it. They think the game's better with it than without it. So their goal is to just increase the incentives really for being a trio. You get a little bit more loot, but it's non-adept stuff, so I'm not going to trio up. Doesn't really matter for me. Lobby balancing. This is the part where I just don't really know what they're talking about anymore. As far as I know, I haven't noticed much lobby bouncing wise since the existence of this game. It's always been that I'm near the top of the leaderboard, and then there's a few stinkers at the bottom. It seems like no matter what they do, there's always going to be that hierarchy, even in a given game. I've been at the bottom too. I've been that stinker. So there's not much they can really do. I mean, I think the best thing you can do is try and provide the best connections, reduce the amount of people leaving the game, and provide the best queue times. Maybe shorter match durations too, so you get into a game fast, people have decent connection in it, and the game ends pretty fast. That's the best way you can go about things, and all they're talking about here doesn't address that, in my opinion. So congrats on yapping for like thousands of words when you didn't really, again, address anything. They addressed some questions people had, which is good. You're clarifying, but you're not providing any, solutions. I mean, I guess outlier protection is your solution, but again, that is so broad. I don't know what to do with that. This is the biggest thing in the entire Twab. They added controller dead zone settings. Now, if you don't know what that is, when you move your toggle, you have to move it a certain degree before the game even starts to turn you. When you reduce your dead zone, you can reduce how much you have to move your toggle to actually start turning, which is going to allow you to turn much more on a dime on controller if you reduce those dead zones, which is a huge thing for controller players. And I believe a lot of people use Zims and Cronus just to get access to these settings. So what I would like to see, and tagged on with this little comment here, is, all right, we added in these dead zone settings. Now we're going to start really getting strict on people using Zim and Cronus, because I don't think they are strict on them yet. I feel like there's just so many people doing that in the game right now. And a change like this should bring about the ability for them to be more punishing to players, because now they have a feature that a lot of people use those, hardwares for. But they didn't really mention anything about cheating in this Twab at all, of any kind, of any capacity. Nor did they address people leaving matches en masse. Like, people are just exiting games constantly now. It's every match I'm in is emptied out by the end half the time. It's like, you're not fixing that at all with anything you're doing. So it's a little bit disappointing for me specifically. I'm sure these things and this information's better for other people, but not too happy about it. As far as Prophecy Dungeon weapon updates go, we're losing 3 weapons. The auto rifle and the sniper are nah. I really like the sidearm though. I'm sad to see that's going. I would have rather see like the Judgment hand cannon leave. I don't really like that thing. It's not good stats wise. The weapons that are getting added in, as well as the ones that are remaining, are going to get a new origin trait, and it's going to give you increased range and handling at the top half of the mag, which is what you'd want on, say, a shotgun, at the bottom half of the mag. So it's not going to benefit the only gun it really benefits, but it is going to benefit, the primary weapons. I'm not sure how big of a damage increase they're going to give you at the bottom half of the mag. I highly doubt it's going to be anything too severe, because we do not want a Destiny 1 situation where people are just dumping magazines to get, your final round. But it's not going to be like that. But still, someone's going to dump half their auto rifle and have a faster time to kill. I really hope that's not what they do with that perk. But we are getting the Prosecutor auto rifle, the Adjudicator submachine gun, and the Relentless Pulse rifle. They're weapons. And then these are getting some of their elements changed for no reason, and that's a wrap on pretty much all of it. They give you also the loot table structure. Yeah. Then they talk about the winners of the Normandy thing. Don't care. Thoughts. It's thoughts time. Overall, again, they yapped. This was a big old pile of yap. They talked about matchmaking for far longer than they need to. They talked about game modes for far longer than they needed to. They didn't talk about... I swear somewhere I saw that they're going to talk about exotics. I have something in my head saying that they said something where they're like, oh, we're going to talk about exotics next week. See if you can guess which ones we're going to talk about. I swear they said that somewhere. And it seems like they scrubbed that from reality, unless this is like a Mandela effect moment. I don't even know. But yeah, they didn't talk about exotics, which I could have swore they were going to talk about, and they didn't. As far as the other stuff, yeah, I mean, we're getting 3 new maps. We already knew that. So that this whole map section is nothing. They're not addressing the fact that they are gonna rework maps per se. They're not doing that. So I really just I don't care. This is not good enough. The rewards are not good enough. You're not adding Artifice armor in a way that I actually care about. If I'm correct about how it's gonna get implemented, I think you're being really stingy with it. Again, it's all this it's just better than nothing. That's the takeaway. It's better than nothing, and I'm tired of that. Just do something crazy for once. You're so restricted in everything you do. It's so calculated and lame. Everything. This sandbox thing is lame. You know what you're doing here. You're just saying the stuff from last week. You're padding your stats and your twabs so you can give it a higher word count. But yeah, that's a wrap. Honestly, I gave you everything I thought as I went through. I don't have any real closing thoughts. I'm still waiting to see what the deal with last word is, if that's going to get improved in any way, because as far as I can tell, it still has a chance of not 3-tapping in this new sandbox. They did say, let me get down to the weapon sandbox section. They clarified the precision damage change a little bit more clearly. They said all of their primary weapon critical hit damage increasing by 10 to 14% depending on archetype to maintain the same optimal TTKs as the current sandbox. So that should mean that last word's getting slightly higher than a 10% buff. to allow it to still 3-tap. But I swear when I was playing Checkmate on Trials, I was not 3-tapping Titans. I swear. So unless they didn't do it then and now they're doing it here, we'll see. Yeah, that's a wrap. Got through that in 20 minutes. That's pretty impressive because this is like 6,700 words or some nonsense. So that's a wrap. Hope you enjoyed the video. Peace. Actually, well, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm out of here.